Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're taking a really close look at a single personal story. It's an account of incredible survival.
That's right. It's from a trekker, Swaroop Joshi, and his Sarpass expedition in the Himalayas. It starts as this amazing adventure and then turns into this life or death struggle after a catastrophic 40-foot fall.
And what's so fascinating about this source is that it's not just a story of what happened. It's a deep study in resilience, and in making impossible decisions under the worst kind of pressure.
Absolutely. The journey begins in Himachal Pradesh, beautiful scenery. You've got Kasol, the Parvati River, all these amazing meadows. But it very quickly becomes a test of human limits. It really showcases what he calls calculated risk.
So the trek itself starts off perfectly normally.
Yeah, completely by the book.
5 days, a big group of 18 people, everyone's having a good time, the camaraderie, the local hospitality, all of that.
But the real story kicks off on the final push to the summit, starting with this ridiculously early 2 a.m. wake-up call at their camp.
Okay, so the stage is set, and things start to get tricky almost immediately.
Oh yeah, the final ascent starts at 4:15 a.m. It's pitch black, and the ground is all slush and unstable from rain.
And right away, we see the first big sort of strategic decision he makes.
We do.
The main group he's with is moving really slowly, they're tired, but he sees a younger, faster group up ahead.
And he just goes for it.
He makes a snap decision to break away from his own group and try to keep up with them.
Which is, a pretty aggressive move in a group trek. You're sort of supposed to stick together.
But it pays off.
It pays off big time. By pushing himself, he reaches the summit right after sunrise. He gets the view, the whole reason he's there, and gets to spend over an hour up there just soaking it all in.
And that speed run just continues on the way down. They start descending toward the next camp, Biskiri, around 7:30 in the morning.
And they're using this technique. It sounds kind of wild. He calls it boot snowboarding.
Can you explain that for anyone listening who hasn't been on a high-altitude trek? What does that actually look like?
It's basically a controlled slide. You've got steep packed snow, and you lean back a little and use the heel and the side of your trekking boots to steer and brake.
So it's fast.
It's incredibly fast. It saves a ton of energy, but it's risky. You hit one patch of ice or a rock hidden under the snow, and you lose all control.
So not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not.
But because of this, they get to the Biskiri camp at 10:30 a.m., which is just amazing.
It's a huge achievement. They're about 6 hours ahead of schedule.
But this is where the good decisions end and what he calls the dreadful decision begins.
Exactly. The early arrival creates this temptation. He thinks, maybe I can push on all the way to the base camp Pulga today, save a whole day.
And then the weather turns.
A huge downpour starts, lasts for about 2 hours. The camp leader even cautions him against going, but, he gives him this smile that sort of says, you're an adult, you know the risks.
And he decides to go anyway.
He sets off alone around 2:00 p.m., totally convinced he can make it to Pulga in just 3 hours.
So that first calculated risk, breaking from the group, worked so well
that it gave him the confidence to take a second, much more reckless one.
Right. The variable he didn't account for was the weather and what it would do to the trail.
Absolutely. That one choice to go on alone in those conditions is what sets the whole disaster in motion. Calculated risk just became, just risk.
And the journey from Biskiri is a nightmare. Howling wind, pouring rain.
And then he hits the crisis point, a fork in the path.
The trail is just gone.
Completely washed away by the rain. He sees some footprints leading off to the right and thinks, okay, that must be the way. But they lead him deeper and deeper into the jungle.
And by 5:00 p.m., he's at a dead end.
A dead end. He's at the edge of a gorge. To keep going, he thinks he has to make this massive jump, like an 8 or 10 foot leap across a gap.
He goes for it.
And a loose stone just gives way under his foot. And that's it. He falls. A completely unprotected 40-foot plummet straight down.
It's almost impossible to imagine surviving that.
A 4-story drop with a heavy pack on. But he gets this incredible stroke of luck.
He hits a boulder on the way down.
Yeah, which deflects his body. He lands on a tree log that's sitting in soft mud and leaves, which cushions the final impact. Probably saved his life.
But the injuries are still really bad.
Oh, severe. A deep wound in his upper right thigh, a hard hit above his right eye that's bleeding. But the worst part, psychologically at least,
his glasses.
He loses his spectacles. His lifeline, as he calls them.
So now he's injured, he's alone at the bottom of a gorge, and he can barely see.
The panic must have been immense. But this is where we see that first survival rule of his kick-in, the absolute need to stay calm.
So what's the first thing he does?
He finds shelter for the night. Just a little U-shaped hole in the mud. He knows the immediate threat is hypothermia, so he has to get into dry clothes.
Which must have been agony.
Just moving was agony, with the injured leg and what he later realizes is probably a broken shoulder.
And then something else happens.
Yeah, a small thing that could have been a breaking point. He's struggling to change, and he drops one of his shoes into a dark pit next to him.
Oh no.
Panic starts to set in, but then he just shifts gears into problem-solving mode.
He stays rational.
Totally rational. He uses a little stone to figure out how deep the pit is. Then he uses his head torch and a stick to carefully fish the shoe out.
A small victory, but...
It was a huge victory. He says that one little success, that small bit of resourcefulness, gave him the mental boost he needed to just get through that first cold, horrible night.
So day 2, he wakes up, he's injured, he's freezing, and he hasn't had any food or water for almost 18 hours.
And his first mission isn't even to escape. It's just to get a drink of water.
He has to climb down even further.
Another 15 or 20 feet down to a waterfall, just to fill his little tiffin box with freezing water. Only after he drinks can he even start to think about the real problem, getting out of the gorge.
And this is where that aggressive but calculated risk idea comes back, but in a totally different way.
Yes. This is where he has to back his abilities. He sees a possible route up a 70-degree slope. He knows the chance of success is, in his words, feeble.
But he has a very specific skill set.
He does. He has experience with free solo climbing.
For our listeners who aren't climbers, what does that actually mean in a survival situation like this? What is he relying on?
He's relying on a deep, intuitive understanding of friction and balance and using tiny, tiny handholds. Free soloing is climbing with no ropes, so it's all about pure physical control and mental discipline.
He's applying physics under extreme stress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Calculating his weight distribution, how much grip he can get on wet rock, finding features that are barely half an inch deep to hold his weight.
And the gear that was supposed to help him is now his biggest problem.
His biggest enemy. The backpack is just dead weight. And his boots, the ones that were so great for sliding down the snow,
Are useless on wet rock.
zero grip. So he has to innovate on the fly. It's incredible.
He decides to climb barefoot.
Right, to get that skin on rock fiction. And then there's the problem of the pack. His right shoulder is basically useless.
So how does he manage it?
With his shoelaces. He ties the heavy bag to his left wrist, his good arm, and then secures it to his belt loop. So he's managing the pack's weight while also using that same arm and his bare feet to do the actual climbing.
It's just an unbelievable feat of real-time engineering. You can just picture him on that rock face, like you said, a lizard on a wall.
And it was painstaking. He'd climb a few feet, find a tiny ledge to rest on, pull the heavy bag up with his one good arm, secure it, and then start the process all over again. One mistake, and it's over.
And this whole escape, just getting out of the gorge, took how long?
About 6 hours.
6 hours of just meticulous, terrifying effort. And that wasn't even the end of it.
Not at all. After the rock face, he had to get up a muddy slope. It was about 40 meters at a 60-degree angle and incredibly slippery.
How did he manage that?
He crawled backward in a sitting position. He figured it distributed his weight better and gave him more control. A single slip there would have meant a 50-foot fall, undoing all that work. The tenacity is just, it's monumental.
So he finally gets out of the gorge around 12:30 p.m. on day 2. He's cheated death twice, but he's still on a mountain, badly injured.
And the fight is nowhere near over. He finds a stick to use as a crutch for his leg, and he just starts moving, following the general direction of the sun.
This is where that second rule comes in, right?
Sure.
Accepting the situation.
Exactly. He's not waiting for rescue anymore. He knows it's all on him. Forward motion is the only thing that matters.
He keeps going for another 6 hours.
6 more grueling hours until his body just gives out around 6:30 p.m. Night 2 is another cold, sleepless night, just praying it doesn't rain again.
And then day 3, this is do or die.
He knows it. He's up at 5:30, trekking by 6.1. It's been over 35 hours with no food, no water. He has nothing left in the tank.
But then a moment of hope.
A huge moment. After about an hour of climbing, he realizes where he is. He recognizes the landscape. He's managed to circle all the way back to the same area he descended from 2 days before. He's back on the path.
That must have been an incredible psychological boost.
It had to be. And his first thought is water. He remembers a little stream of glacier melt nearby.
But it's almost dried up.
Almost.
Yeah.
And this leads to this really poignant scene. He has to painstakingly collect water in his little tiffin box.
It takes him a long time, doesn't it?
It takes 10 to 12 minutes for each single refill. He just sits there for over an hour, slowly, deliberately rehydrating. And he says that was what renewed his energy. It gave him what he needed for the final push.
And then he gets a sign.
A literal sign. He sees a flock of birds circling up ahead. And he thinks, birds mean people, they mean discarded food from a camp.
So he just follows them.
He follows them. He spots a man-made tent through the trees. And 2 hours later, he stumbles into the campsite. The triumph, the reincarnation, as he calls it.
It's just astounding. The entire story is a masterclass in survival, not just physically, but mentally. If we boil it all down, it really comes back to those 4 principles he identified. His cheat sheet for survival.
That's right. Every single action fits into one of those. First, staying calm. That's how he dealt with losing his glasses and retrieving a shoe instead of just panicking.
Second, accepting the situation. He stopped hoping for rescue and focused entirely on what he could control, which was moving forward.
Third, backing your abilities. That was the key to getting out of the gorge, trusting his very specific knowledge of climbing when everything else told him it was impossible.
And finally, that big one we've been talking about. Aggressive but calculated risk.
Yes, understanding that sometimes the only way forward is to take a huge, terrifying risk, but only after you've weighed every variable you possibly can.
To think that a human being can overcome a 40-foot fall, a broken shoulder, 2 nights in the freezing cold, and then climb out of a gorge barefoot, it's just incredible.
And if you look at the big picture, the whole thing started with one choice, right? The choice to separate from the group to get a better reward. That sunrise view.
It makes you question the nature of risk itself.
It really does. When is pushing ahead on your own a necessary risk for a high reward? And when is it just plain reckless? His story suggests the difference is in the quality of your calculation and, maybe more importantly, your ability to adapt when that calculation proves to be spectacularly wrong.
That's a great final thought for you to mull over. This whole story really hinges on the difference between just being determined and being both determined and calculated. So think about this. When that moment of panic hits, when the fall has robbed you of your strength and your sight, which of those 4 rules, staying calm, acceptance, backing your abilities, or calculated risk, which one do you think would be the hardest for you to hold on to?